We had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hopefully everyone else did too. I think we had about 40 people here, and everybody, we arrived, we ate, we did a little bit of decorating, Christmas, and then we left. So nice, so nice. Didn't have to do all that cooking, but zesty cranberry salsa. Here's the recipe. It's in the back. It's to die for. So, yep, it was very, 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 very good. And I was gone last weekend. I was rummaging through central Idaho.
You were mixed.
Yeah, I was. Thank you. I went to. I never recognized a single city, not one. I was in Ferdinand, population 135. And actually, I think the biggest city, I don't know how actually big it was, probably about 2,000, but it was, I think it was Grangeville.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Cute. Really? Cute little town. It's the cutest town. I mean, if you could figure out Main Street, USA, or Main City, small town, that was it. It's a cute little place.
My uncle was a postman here for like 40 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Yeah, fascinating part of Idaho. I had fun. So lots of things going on. Obviously, we had Thanksgiving here this last week, and Christmas is coming up. It's only 4 weeks away. Coming up on, wait, is this the last? 28th, 20, oh, wrong month. Wrong month. There we go. Of course, Qigong every Sunday morning, and not a whole lot going on this week. Making sure ARE does meet here at 6:30. Ladies' lunch on Friday. Actually, they're doing it this Friday at the church, so bring your own lunch. So, and that was fun, and all kinds of stuff going on. The calendar has a couple of errors, so if you want to just kind of take note, the gift fair that we are putting on, that Valerie is helping with, had it in my hand. Thank you. That's spooky. Whispers from the Other Side will be December 15th from 6:30 to 8, right? Cost is $35 for if you want a booth. Obviously, it doesn't cost anything. That's something else. There's two separate things. Oops, sorry. That's right. Whispers from the Other Side. Duh. Valerie. Talk to her December 15th, 6:30 to 8. Flyers are in the back. The phone number on the calendar is incorrect. It's actually, it has a 509-366-48. It's actually 78. It's the last two numbers, 78. So if you want to make that change, and talk to Valerie if you want to know more about that. It's going to be wonderful. And then ARE has their party, DVD night on the 14th. That's from 5:30 to 8:30. And then the last 2 Thursdays of the month, the 21st and 28th, they're not going to do it because of the Christmas time. So, fun. T-shirts, more T-shirts and sweatshirts. You know the thing on your computer, if you've got Windows, is that little thingy that goes round when the computer's thinking? Yeah, envision that saying, I'm thinking. Please don't interrupt me when I'm talking to myself. Good T-shirt, good T-shirt. If I learned from all my mistakes, I'd be a genius. Don't be afraid of growing older. You'll still do stupid things, only slower. In my defense, I was left unsupervised. So,
You should get that one.
I know, I really should. I really should. Yes, I should indeed. All right. I've got one coming up that I didn't really know. It was good. Things that make you go, experience is the name everyone gives to his mistakes. Oscar Wilde. Many are stubborn in pursuit of the path they have chosen. Few in the pursuit of the goal. Nietzsche. By a small sample we may judge of the whole pie.
Yeah.
So that sometimes is true. So there are no permanent rivers or lakes in Saudi Arabia. I know, makes you think. It's like, okay. And sometimes I find things in this book, actually this is only a portion of the book because the book's fallen apart, but that I think are absolutely fascinating. Invention of the horn book was a major landmark in education. Actually, not a book at all. It was a sheet of vellum fastened to a board and covered with thin, translucent horn. Generations of children had no other device with which to learn their letters. It was in general use during the time of Shakespeare. Pious makers of the horn book usually printed the alphabet in large and small letters, followed by a benediction and the Lord's Prayer. Almost without exception, the bold cross was placed at the very beginning of the sheet as a tribute to the Savior. Young scholars naturally tried to copy this Christ cross as well as the letters which followed it. Beginners often made the symbol quite clumsily, so by the late 18th century, any pattern of cross lines had come to be termed a crisscross. So now you know where that word came from. I find that stuff just fascinating. We do have a couple patron saints at the Divine Fellowship by the name of George Carlin and John Lennon. And we've developed them over 20 years. You know, this is our last week of our 20th anniversary celebration. I hope we get another 20. I'll be an old man then. I'll probably still jump up on the stage. So, probably, hopefully. So, John said, I believe that as soon... Oh, no, he didn't say that. He did say that one, but that's not the one I was going to do. You are not your emotions. You have emotions, and you can master them. So. And George, always equally as insightful. Capitalism tries for a delicate balance. It attempts to work things out so that everyone gets just enough stuff to keep them from getting violent and trying to take other people's stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Children's science exam. What causes the tides in the ocean? The tides are a fight between Earth and Moon. All water tends to flow towards the moon because there's no water on the moon, and nature hates a vacuum. I forget where the sun joins in the fight. What are steroids? Things for keeping carpets still on the stairs. What happens to your body as you age? When you get old, so do your bowels, and you get intercontinental. It's kids, okay? There's another terrible one. What happens to a boy when he reaches puberty? He says goodbye to his boyhood and looks forward to his adultery. I probably should just stop. I think I'm just going to stop. See? He thought it was funny. He had no idea what I was saying, but he thought it was funny. So, Timmy was a little 5-year-old boy that his mom loved very much, and being a worrier. She was concerned about him walking to school when he started kindergarten. She walked him to school for a couple of days, but when he came home one day, he told his mother that he did not want her walking him to school every day. He wanted to be like the big boys and walk with them. He protested loudly, so she finally got an idea of how to handle this. She asked a neighbor, Mrs. Goodnest, if she would follow her son to school. Thank you. I, for some reason, couldn't pronounce it at the time. At a distance behind him that he would not likely notice, but close enough to keep a watch on him. Mrs. Goodnest said that since she was up early with her toddler anyway, it would be a good way for them to get some exercise, so she agreed. The next day, Mrs. Goodnest and her little girl, Marcy, set out following behind Timmy as he walked to school with another neighbor boy he knew. She did this for a whole week as the boys walked and chatted, kicking stones and twigs. The little friend of Timmy noticed that the same lady was following him as she seemed to do every single day. Finally, he said to Timmy, "Have you noticed that lady following us all week? Do you know her?" Timmy nonchalantly replied, "Yeah, I know who she is." "Well, who is she?" the little friend said. "Well, that's Shirley Goodnest," Timmy said. "Shirley Goodnest? Who's she and why is she following us?" "Well," Timmy explained, "every night my mom makes me say the 23rd Psalm with her prayers 'cause she worries about me so much. And in it, the psalm says, surely goodness and mercy should follow me all the days of my life. So, I guess I'll have to get used to it. But, cute, cute. Ah, nectar of the gods. Oh, okay. Communion sign-up sheets. Oh, I see. Yeah, one is a bazaar.
One more booth space at the bottom.
One more booth space for the bazaar. So there's only one left. If you know somebody that wants it, grab it.
And I'll be contacting you.
Okay, and Valerie will be contacting people this week. And the December, is this it? Oh, okay, for communion. We don't have anybody doing communion except Joe and Val. And they don't want to do it all month, right? So if we have some other people that would like to help, that would be appreciated. You know, and that's the one thing too, when Jan and I started the church 20 years ago, we had to do everything. I mean, everything. You know, we had to put the sandwich board out on Columbia Park Trail. It was heavy, yeah. And then we had to go in and fix everything and do everything. And so, y'all make it so much easier. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Y'all do?
Yep. Okay.
So this is our fourth Sunday of honoring the 20 years we've been having such great fun. So we got something really special planned for you in a bit. Meantime, we just want to remind you of who we are, where we came from. Phil and I got to talking about stuff.
You know, and we were both raised fairly conservative. No, she was raised really conservative Christian. And me as a recovering Catholic. There was some of that in there.
Yes, in the church I grew up in, if dancing was evil, smoking and drinking was evil.
All the fun
All
stuff.
kind of stuff was evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was. So anyway, as we'll find out as we discuss things today, the Divine Fellowship wasn't really ever on either of our radars. This is something that we want to do with ourselves. It just kind of happened, had its own energy develop. And as we've gone along, we've kind of had the same premise through the whole thing. And that is that the Divine Fellowship is a sanctuary where you can explore your spiritual nature and whatever that looks like. And we also honor some things that most regular churches don't.
Like the Doobie Brothers. Nobody in the universe starts their services with the Doobie Brothers.
Or George Carlin.
Or George Carlin, or yeah, true too.
But we also honor the Native American pathway. We do stuff that Jesus did. Jesus was a mystic, and so we follow that. The star led the wise men to Jesus. So astrology, they were astrologers, so we honor astrology. Jesus talked to dead people, so we do too. The apostles cast lots, which is a form of divination, to find the subsequent apostle to fill in Judas's place. So we do divination. We haven't figured out raising the dead yet, but we do healings. So we try to follow the pattern that Jesus did. He would stand in the face of hypocrisy. He didn't tolerate that. So we try to stand for what we believe in, and we think that you do too. So we first used to call ourselves mystic Christians, and then we just couldn't swallow the term Christian anymore because there were so many hateful things done with that label. Still are. So we decided, looking back in the scriptures, the people that followed Jesus first were called followers of the way. So we've adopted that. We are followers of the way. And the way is this aspect of living in integrity and serving others. So with that said, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that?
Why are you kidding? You did good.
Thank you, dear.
I won't say anything.
Let's do.
I won't spoil it. Oh, okay.
So this is the fourth Sunday, and it used to be Christopher Sunday. He's no longer with us. But he is, yes. So we wanted to honor his years of service. Again, he was all about service as well. So we had a picture made This is one of the pictures that somebody had posted on Facebook of him. And then this was the thing that he wrote that we used for his last service. So we have a special place in the back that we're going to hang that as an honorarium of our Christopher.
Yeah, he was ours.
He was ours. Do you still have the Great Invocation on your phone? You want to read that? If you don't, we'll do it next time. But if you do easily.
Just read it up here.
Nope, the Divine Invocation is not that.
That's right.
It's hanging on the wall in the back. We can go grab that if you need it.
Right there.
No, all the way in the back?
That's right.
By the kitchen window. La, 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 la. Welcome to the Divine Fellowship. Nothing is planned. We just kind of fly with the angels here. So, yes, we are left unsupervised frequently. Does anyone have anything they want to say about the Divine Fellowship? Okay, we got one while she's looking for that. Hold on.
Got it.
When I first came to the Tri-Cities, I went to my first healing expo, and I met Lori Ellie, and she said, I can tell that you're a spiritual person, but you're tired of organized religion. And she said, my guides are telling me that you would love a place called Divine Fellowship. And so I came, and it was on one of the anniversaries, and I'm like, this is right up my alley, because I'm all about fun. And I signed up for the Dream Quest course, took that, and I have met so many awesome, cool friends, and I call this place my fun house. And I've gone to so many classes here, and it's been a fun ride for me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I got
I can
it.
do that.
That would work. So the Great Invocation, this is what Christopher used to finish off his services when he'd come on Sundays. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Namaste.
Namaste. Song?
It was put together approximately the same time that picture was framed approximately the same time.
Okay, let me say that for the camera. This was a gift from William and Sandra, and this was put together and framed about the same time that we were starting the church. And Sandra and William donated this to the church
Wow.
after that. Thank you. Wonderful. I'll go hang them.
Just another serendipitous moment.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, wow. Worked. Not used to that. We're going to sing a new song. So if you want to just kind of listen and read, that'd be cool too. But certainly if you want to sing, please do. I know, we like it too. I know, it's a good song too. We could just sit here and play songs all day long. Hi, I'm Phil Laspaccio, and have I got a deal for you? Yes, it's true. You've heard about it. You've seen it on TV, but I'm here to show you it is the very, very best thing ever. All you have to do is spray it on and all your troubles go away. I mean, every last one of them, they just disappear. Nothing you have to do. No hard work. Just this spray. 1995, today, and today only. But wait, I have more. I have the big spray. This is to spray your friends with the same stuff. It changes them just like that. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is spray, and you're done. No hard work, no 20 years of time, no 5 years of time. Everything just disappears.
All right.
Yeah, right. I used to do skits at the beginning of every service, like that. That was kind of a reenactment. I know. I know. But I 20 years ago, I used to do skits before every service. I did that for over a year, so it was like over 50 different skits. And I couldn't think of anything more after that. I was just done. So we don't do that anymore, but that was just an idea.
Thank you, Phil. Let's give him a round of applause. The one and only Phil. We have a guest speaker today. Helps if I speak into the microphone. She has spent quite a bit of time looking at the astrology for the Divine Fellowship. She's been studying and has been certified in Yashtaratna Vedic astrology. Did I slaughter it? I slaughtered it. She'll say it again. She's going to tell you words that you don't know and won't be able to speak either. Don't let your eyes glaze over. Just keep listening because there's more information coming. Okay, so just know that. It's Vedic astrology from the East Indian culture. She's also a yoga instructor and an Ayurvedic practitioner, which is the health science. It's like Chinese medicine, only, again, from the Eastern world. It's the ancient medical practice. Very cool stuff. And she's also a chemist at Hanford. So all of that rolled into one wonderful little package. Heather Anastos, give her a warm welcome.
Try again. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. I've had a lot of fun looking at the astrology for Divine Fellowship, and I'm super excited to share what I've seen in the chart with all of you today. So I'm going to just get my notes here situated a bit so that I can find everything easily. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about this morning is why astrology? You know, for as long as humans have paid attention to the celestial bodies in the sky, and they've started to notice patterns, and they looked at those patterns, and they used it as a divination tool to better understand the things that were happening here on Earth, both collectively as human beings on the planet, and also individually. And so this is a practice that dates back to about the 2nd millennium BCE, so it's been around a really long time. India, China, and the Mayan cultures actually had very elaborate systems for astrology. The system that I studied is Jyotish, or Jyotish, you sometimes hear it said, and I'm a Jyotisha Ratna, which means that I certified in Vedic astrology. So let's see. So this is one of those traditions of astrology that's been around for a really long time. Western astrology has also been around for a really long time. So it dates back to the 19th to 17th century BCE. And originally, astrology was studied as a science, right along with astronomy, the study of the planets and the stars that's still celebrated as a science today, along with alchemy, meteorology, and medicine. They were all studied together originally. But in today's society, it's often relegated to the horoscope columns, right? Which is really a drastically oversimplified version of the vast and detailed approach that can be astrology, which can provide us great understanding into our lives and our culture and what's happening in the world around us. So Astrology, particularly Vedic astrology, can give us great insight into cycles and patterns that are happening, as well as into our purpose and our desires, and what's rising up into our awareness at any current time in our life. So we use the birth day, place, and time, and draw a representation of the planets as they exist in the sky at the moment of your birth. That's considered a birth chart. And so once we have a birth chart, then we can understand the placement and the interactions of these planetary energies. And those planetary energies set potential for our lives. And different things, different potentials are going to rise to the surface at different times in our life. But I also always like to state, we all have free will. So just because you have the potential doesn't mean that it manifests. It depends on what you do when those opportunities are present. One of the reasons I really wanted to study astrology was because I started to see these cycles and patterns, and I started to realize that the more you're aware of what those cycles and patterns are happening, what's rising up, you can be more open to stepping through that doorway of potential when it arises, versus perhaps being afraid of it or unsure of it or not certain, which is something that I think we all experience over time. So in astrology, particularly Vedic astrology, we're looking at these potentials that we have. And we're looking to how that relates to our past lives, our samskara. These are the patterns that happen. There's one of those words that I'm going to say that you may or may not be able to understand or break down. It's Sanskrit, which is the ancient language of India. It's also a very intelligent language. And the reason I'm going to use these words today is because the vibration of the word matches the energy of the concept. And so by using that word, I'm actually helping us all understand the concept a little bit better. So you don't have to remember it, you don't have to be able to say it, but me saying it helps you understand the concept, because we often don't have similar concepts in English to use the same word. So samsara is the patterns or the cycles that we go through in our life. And you probably have experienced this, where you cycle through similar situations in your life. Things come up and they come back around. Maybe in a different form, maybe in a little different way, but you're repeating the same lessons. This is the idea of samskara and samsara. Samsara is the cycle and repetition. Samskara is the lesson that we can learn from it. And you can break down these things. It's related to the concept of karma. I hesitate to throw out that word, though, because it's very misunderstood. It's like, oh, well, something bad's happening to me. I did something bad in a past life. That's really a gross oversimplification of karma. It's the lessons that we're meant to learn. It's those cycles that occur. And sometimes those lessons are challenging and difficult, and sometimes they don't have to be, especially if you can understand them better. And this is a tool that can help us with that. So it's one of the reasons why I was driven to study this. So the idea is, by using tools like this, we can understand our purpose, we can understand some of the challenges facing us, and some of those cycles that are going to repeat. And in being aware of that, we can move forward with a little more grace and ease. So Jyotish, or Vedic astrology, translates as the science of light. So it's the light of the celestial bodies that we see in the sky, but it's also the light of illumination and enlightenment. It's knowledge. It brings us information that we can take forward to live our lives more gracefully. So Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, uses what's known as the sidereal zodiac. So most of us are familiar with Western astrology and the zodiac, the houses of the zodiac. But Jyotish uses a slightly different form. In Western astrology, it's tropical, which means it's based on the sun. And Aries is the first house in the zodiac in both systems. But in the tropical system, the first degree of Aries is set at the spring equinox. And it says, where the sun is placed at the spring equinox is the first degree of Aries. That's the tropical system. So and because that system is tropical, you know your sign, right? Everybody pretty much knows their sign. When you say, what's your sign, you know what your answer is. It's the same one that you typically read in the horoscope boxes in the magazines, right? This is actually your Western sun sign, which is different in Vedic astrology, or may be different. Okay? We look at it from a different perspective. Vedic astrology is sidereal, and it's lunar-based. What that means is that instead of looking at where the sun is placed on a certain day, it looks at where the sun is relative to the background of the fixed stars. So yes, the universe is expanding, the stars are moving, but from our perspective on Earth, they look like they're stationary. They're not moving. Yet the zodiac appears to move in the sky. The planets appear to move within that zodiac band. Okay? So what Vedic astrology does is it actually looks at where actually does the sun enter the stars that represent the constellation of Aries. And that is actually not at the spring equinox. The spring equinox, the sun is actually at about 7 degrees in Aquarius today. So there's about a 23-degree, the sun is actually in 7 degrees of Pisces, one sign back. It's 23 degrees different from the Western zodiac. So when the tropical zodiac says it starts here, the sun is actually placed here in the sky. So if you read Vedic astrologers versus Western astrologers, they'll say that the planets are in different signs, and it can get really confusing, and you'll think that one of your astrologers doesn't know what they're talking about. It's just a different way of looking at it. About the 6th or 7th century BC, those zodiacs aligned, and they were both right here. But it moves backward about 1.4 degrees every century. So they're getting further apart very slowly. And the sidereal zodiac is actually moving towards the age of Aquarius, when the sun at the spring equinox will be in Aquarius. So we've all heard that term, age of Aquarius, but we don't often know exactly where it comes from. This is where it comes from. Well, yeah, but where did the song get it? Guess what? They knew this stuff. So both systems are valid. Both systems provide really useful information. So I'm not saying, oh my gosh, your sign isn't your sign anymore. No, in the Western system it is, and it has value, and it gives you lots of information. This is just a different way to look at your birth information relative to the planetary influences. And in particular, Jyotish, I think, is very good at looking at timings and cycles. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So because the Western is solar-based, we all know our sun sign, but some Western astrologers actually do use the sidereal, and so you may have a different sun sign with some Western astrologers, and with Vedic astrologers, they'll always talk about different things. Usually, since Vedic astrology is lunar-based, it's based on the moon, that we look at two other things before we ever look at the sun sign. We look at the ascendant sign, and we look at the moon sign. And what the ascendant is this is if you're born at a certain place and time, there is a rising sign on the eastern horizon. What sign is breaking up over the horizon at that time and date of birth? That's your ascending sign. That's your ascendant. And then where is the moon placed? That's your lunar sign. Those are the two things that we look at first in Vedic astrology, but we do also use the sun sign, as well as information on where all of the planets are, which Western astrology does too. It's just they're a little different from each other. So one of the things that's very important with a lunar-based system is the time of birth. Because if you think about the moon is the most rapidly moving of the celestial bodies. So changes in time of birth, even by not very much, can have a significant impact on the chart when we're looking at lunar information. So in doing a chart for an organization, the challenge becomes, what's the birth time for an organization? And so that was the first challenge that we had. And the way we addressed this was Janice and Phil put together a timeline of key events during the Divine Fellowship evolution. And they put all of these key events starting from the very earliest date to current history. And they made a little list of these. And so then what I could do is go in and try different charts and see which one rectified, which one matches up. And it turns out I actually took a little bit of a guess, because it was the 11/4/1997 date that was the one that was matching up best. And I'm like, I wonder what time that first service was, because it wasn't in the information. And I took a guess at 10 a.m. and it turns out that was actually the time. And when I looked at this chart, I thought it was right because everything was kind of clicking into place and made a lot of sense. So you can rectify even if you don't know a birth time. That just gets to be a little trickier. The more accurately you know birth time, the more accurate the events are going to be in the chart. So one of the key things to talk about with Vedic astrology is planetary cycles. And this is something that's a little different than Western astrology. Based on the position of the moon at the time of birth, there is a cycle of planetary cycles that starts. And each of the 9 planetary objects that Vedic astrology looks at has a cycle. And those cycles vary in length from 7 years to 19 years long, depending on the particular planet. And where you start in that cycle depends on where your moon is in your birth chart. That entire cycle is 120 years long. So if you live to be 120, you will go the whole way through that cycle. If you don't, you're going to make it through however much of it fits based on where you started. So these are called dasha cycles, and the main cycle is the Mahadasha cycle. So the first thing to learn about a Vedic astrology chart is what is the Mahadasha that you are in currently, because that's the things that are rising up. With this particular chart for Divine Fellowship, I thought that it was really interesting to see that its inception was during the Ketu Mahadasha. So this is the symbol for Ketu here. It is the south node of the moon, and it's the indicator of psychic activities, deep spirituality, healthy detachment, and moksha, which is spiritual liberation.
You can't make it.
So the first service, the move to Kennewick, the creation of the cross, and the addition of the dream catcher to the cross all occurred during this cycle. Currently, the church is in the Venus Mahadasha. And the Venus Mahadasha is a time associated with love, beauty, the arts, marriage, wisdom. The church was incorporated. It was made a nonprofit, moved to its current home. The labyrinth was created. Grandfather Drum was built. And this beautiful sanctuary that we're in was developed and decorated during this period of time. So Venus, in the Divine Fellowship chart, is found in Sagittarius. This is the symbol for Venus. And so in Sagittarius, it's also in what we call the Mula Nakshatra. And so in Vedic astrology, it's very lunar based. So not only do we look at the signs of the zodiac, we actually break that down into 3 lunar mansions. And each of these zodiac have 3 lunar mansions associated with them. And each of those mansions, much like the sign, have an energy and information that comes along with that lunar mansion. The lunar mansion of Mula, if you think of the root chakra, so Mula Bandha chakra, right? Muladhara chakra, the first chakra, this is the base. This is the foundation. It's also associated with the galactic center of the universe. So this is the part of the chart that is getting the divine rays from the center of the galactic universe. Mula holds a power similar to that of the Tower card in tarot. So it's the necessary destruction of the superficial to identify the foundation. During the time frame of the Venus Mahadasha, the Divine Fellowship found its current home here on Barth Avenue. And when I talked to Janice and Phil, they shared with me a story of how they literally had to create the physical foundation for this building. That it was originally built as a temporary building, and they actually had to lift it up and pour a foundation. And this is very Mula Nakshatra. This is the root, this is the base, this is the foundation. So that type of foundational creation is representative of Venus and Mula. During this time frame, the church has also found its foundational membership, its foundational philosophies, and its base purpose. So it's been a time of building self-confidence and bringing together the group of people that are Divine Fellowship today. During a long Mahadasha like Venus, which is 19 years long, secondary dashas or secondary cycles are particularly significant. Currently, the church is in a Mercury subdosha, so it's associated with technology and communication. In a few months, in February, this will shift to a K2 cycle, which is associated with that psychic activity. So it'll be interesting to kind of watch, as you know that date, how the things shift and change in a secondary cycle. One of the other things to be aware of is that the church will actually shift Mahadashas, the main cycle, in January of 2020. And it's a shift from Venus to Sun. And so this is a very significant change. Venus is, love, beauty. It's in that foundational nakshatra of Mula, whereas the Sun cycle will have a very different energy. It's more about self-expression and personal growth. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. I want to talk about the ascendant. So this is that rising sign at the moment of birth. What sign is coming up on the eastern horizon? And for the church, it's Scorpio is the rising sign, and the planet Mercury is placed in that sign. This indicates a deep mystical personality, strong emotions and intuition, and a transcendental drive, a drive towards that idea of moksha, that liberation, spiritual liberation. It holds aspects of being beyond death, and it carries a strong, passionate will. Mercury provides power of expression, travel, and communication, which normally I would interpret a little differently, but when you put it into the mystical sign of Scorpio, this very easily becomes astral and multidimensional travel, communication, and expression. Mercury in the first house is indicative of teachers, writers, and speakers, and it can be associated with detectives or investigators, which, this normally would have a different interpretation, but it's those who are willing to dig deep to find the truth, including the secrets of life that others may avoid. It's that willingness to dig deep and look at the truth. Scorpio is also, Mercury is also the planet of healing. The Greek god Mercury could travel to the underworld and deliver messages and successfully return to the surface. Mercury is associated with healing. The caduceus was wielded by Mercury, so the great staff with the serpents is a very strong healing tool that was Mercury's tool. In Scorpio, the underworld aspects of Mercury are put to work. That digging deep, going into the underworld, talking and speaking to and for the dead. And also, it may call to those who are abused or have been in need of deep healing, as it can provide a new healing foundation. Next, the moon sign. So the moon is also found in Sagittarius in Mula Nakshatra, the same as Venus. And I'll also point out that Mars is also in that same nakshatra of Mula. All three of these planets are fairly close in degree, and they all fall within that same lunar mansion. So the Mula energy, that base root foundational energy, is very, very strong. So it's that foundational energy that's associated with emotions, creativity, and actions. All are to find the true basis of foundation and support. It's looking for the truth. Sagittarius is the second house in this chart. So the ascendant always becomes the first house, and then you count in this direction to find the number for the house. The second house is for those that are near to us. Those that are, in a person's chart, we would look to family members, immediate household family members. So this is the community. This is the very close community. And it means that those who are in foundational crises can find support and sanctuary here. More on that when we get to the sun sign. That'll tie in a little bit more with the idea of sanctuary. Each nakshatra has a superpower. So I know you want to know the superpower of Mula. So the Shakti, or superpower of Mula, is the necessary dissolution to proceed new life. It's that Tower card in tarot. It's that breaking down that which is hiding the truth, breaking down the superficial to find the truth, the detail, the foundation, the rock. This area of the zodiac is considered the beginning of spirituality. It's associated with deep philosophy and inquisitiveness. Moon and Mula can be very peace-loving, have excellent oratory skills, a charitable nature, and be one who gives spiritual advice. The Dalai Lama had this placement as an example. Strong Mula energy is also going to call to those who are seeking a foundation or who have had their personal foundations rocked. The next thing to look at is going to be the sun sign. So the sun sign is right here, and it's placed in the sign of the zodiac of Libra. It's also the 12th house, meaning that it's the last house from the ascendant. So the 12th house is associated with retreat and liberation. It's also associated with that idea of moksha, or spiritual liberation. Libra itself is balance, harmony, fairness, and bringing people of different ideas together. The sun indicates the soul, or the soul's desire. This particular placement indicates retreat, charity, philanthropic activities, and a fair amount of secrecy. There's an aspect here of obscurity, but also a strong leaning towards psychic activities. As the sun cycle starts in January of 2020, some of that obscurity will fade, and the church will likely gain more prominence in the community. This may be through increased local awareness, some use of technology, Mercury, to gain prominence in a virtual community, Scorpio. So one of the things I want to point out in the chart is this is the first house, and this is the 7th. So one of the things we do is we kind of draw a line, if you can imagine a virtual line between the 1st and 7th house. What you'll notice is that most of the planets are on one side of the chart. It's very heavily weighted here. And what we would say in Vedic astrology is houses 1 through 7 are the private. This is what isn't shown to the world. This is our private nature. Versus 7 through 12 is more the public face. And so what's seen in the public is a place of retreat, a place of sanctuary, and Rahu in the leadership role, which is those who are outside normal society. So, as that sun cycle, and you'll see you've been in K2 and Venus cycles, which have all been on that private side. So the people who needed to find the sanctuary were able to see it and find it. But you may find that there's increased prominence and increased awareness as that sun cycle starts in 2020. Changes in dashas are a significant change in energy, and that's something that's already building, shifting, and changing. Natural evolution that's meant to occur. So as long as you're aware of those changes coming, you kind of, oh, here's that. It's happening. Oh, this is probably part of that. It can make it much easier to transition versus if you don't know that that change is coming, it can be a bit startling. right? So it's always nice to be forewarned. One of the other things that is really beautiful about this chart that I'd like to point out is the placement of Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter is sitting here in Capricorn, and Saturn is in Pisces. And Pisces is a Jupiter-ruled house, and Capricorn is a Saturn-ruled house. So they are in a mutual exchange. They are living in each other's houses. And Saturn and Jupiter are two really important planets in the chart. And so they are supporting one another in this placement. So Jupiter is in a sign of corporations and organizations. It's the sign of it's the planet that's associated with great teachers, philosophy, religion, and spirituality. Saturn in Pisces, which is the sign of ultimate release, death, transcending death, and rebirth. Saturn is the sign of time, restriction, structure, devotion, and hard work. This exchange of signs gives significant strength to divine fellowship. It brings divine guidance and wisdom of Jupiter in sync with divine timing of Saturn. So through effort and devotion, along with intuitive knowledge and awareness, exceptional outcomes can be achieved with this chart. One of the other things that I'd like to make note of is that when I was reviewing the timeline of events, the first chart I actually ran was the chart of the date when Phil and Janice were ordained. And when I looked at that chart, it just didn't line up with the rest of the events. But after I found this one, I went back and looked at that chart. And it's really quite beautiful to see that in that chart, Jupiter and the moon were placed in Scorpio, which is the church's ascendant. And the sun and Mercury were placed in the 7th house, which is the house of partnerships. And so there really was a divine inspiration. The other thing to notice is that the ascendant was in Cancer, which is the house of family and motherhood. And the church's first house of Scorpio was the 5th house of creativity, higher education, heart's desire, and past life merit.
That's the problem.
Jupiter and the moon are found in Scorpio, mind, emotion, and God. The sun and Mercury are in the 7th house of partnerships, communication, soul's purpose, and desire. So it was a lovely precursor to the inception of divine fellowship. And it further shows the divine guidance and timing that's been in place from the very, very earliest moments and which will follow the church throughout its life cycle. Wow. Pretty cool, right? So thank you very much for letting me share this information. It was a lot of fun to look at.
Thank you.
Oh, that was amazing. Heather has cards on the back table if you'd like to chat with her more about anything personal for yourself. Let's do a guided meditation. Do you have the microphone back?